Hey.
I got out of the service, I enrolled at SLI, and I went for 2 weeks and quit. I said, this ain't for me. And then I got the job doodlebugging and working for Bellman for the school board and doing that. And Hubert said, it's about time for you to do something. So I went back to school. He was a great guy. Of course, my other brothers were too, but I got to give Hubert the credit.
J.D., you remember anything about Hubert in particular?
Other than the fact that he was driven to succeed in life, and he had his medical problems, of course, with his leg and stuff like that. It took a lot of gumption on his part to succeed the way he did, because he really had problems with his physically. He did succeed.
I can remember one more thing about Hubert. As education prone as he was, his 3 offspring got a hell of an good education. But one thing I remember about Hubert again, he kept track of every expense it took for his 3 kids to go to college. He kept track of, he had it on paper too. Everything, he had all the expenses shown. Not that he was cheap, but he just wanted to see how long and how much it would cost to educate these 3. You remember that, Kathy? Yeah. I remember something else about your mama, too. She couldn't make the reunion. No, she graduated from me from high school. And so did Laura Bell. We were in the same class. You didn't know that? Yeah. And where the hell was I going with this?
Mercy and reunion?
Wait a minute. Oh! We were going to have a class reunion one time, and we had to each write a little autobiography, a little short skit. And she mentioned in that her 3 babies. She mentioned in that, in fact, she had 3 kids. One of whom was a doctor, MD. One was a PhD. And I don't remember what you work at. No, dental hygienist. Yes. But she mentioned all that in her little autobiography. And that made me cry too. Now, I don't have anything else to say.
All right. Okay, so the next on the list is Uncle J.D. What do you remember about him?
Would you hold this, please?
I'm going to go first.
Oh, Lord.
I owe my success in life from an education standpoint, from a development standpoint to J.D. He and Bill were living in Bed Village, and they invited me to live with them to try and go to school. Well, one day when J.D. got home from school, Lewis wasn't there anymore. Lewis had dropped out of school and come back to Opelousas to maybe have a few beers and have some fun with some of his buddies. So actually, I got a date that same night. I got a date and was at the drive-in theater, at the Midway Drive-In Theater, watching a movie. Well, I was watching a movie. I had a date, so you know how much you watch the movie if you have a date at the drive-in. But then somebody walked up to the side of my car and knocked on the window. And guess who it was? My brother J.D. And he said, "Get your butt out here." So he and I started a conversation. And before he would leave, he made me promise unequivocally that I was not going to join the service, and that I would go back to school the following semester. And that's how that's the way I finally ended up with a college education and was able to make have a good livelihood.
It still shows where he had his hand on it.
But he took the time to come looking for me and convince me that I should. My intent was to go the next day and join the service, but he convinced me that I shouldn't do that, and I did go back to school, and I was successful in finishing school. And let's see. Well, he just generally, he set a real good example for my upcoming. That's about it.
Do you remember the day that he got back from the service?
I can't say that I do. No, I don't really remember.
Not really. Well, early on, I could remember that J.D. and I used to work together. We made crates together. And I don't know why, but he was always the boss. And we worked very hard, very diligently. And I had no other way to go but to obey what he had to say. Because he was a bad little mother. He held his ground. And hell, I was 20 years old before I realized he was not my boss. But J.D. and I were in the Air Force together, although he was way ahead of me. When I joined the Air Force, he was in Japan. And of course, when he got home, I was nowhere around. I was in Japan. And I was stationed at Lackland Air Force Base, Cheyenne, Wyoming, Francis E. Warren Air Force Base. And that's the first snow I ever felt in my life. But anyway, I got tired there. So I volunteered to go to Europe. But the Air Force doesn't work that way. They sent me to Asia. And by the way, the first day I got to Japan is when I became adapted to earthquakes. I was sitting on the 10th floor of the Far East Air Force building when my chair started sliding across the room. And I said, "What the hell is going on?" What they told me. But we're supposed to be talking about J.D. now. Anyway, J.D., as low-key as he is now, he was a bad little rascal too. In fact, I remember he called Daddy one night. He had a little 56 Chevrolet or something. And he got home, woke up Mom and Dad, and he said, got in a little wreck. But Daddy got up, a little wreck. And Dad got up and went with him. His car was wrapped around a telephone pole. Remember that? Oh, Lord. Well, to digress a little bit, he got home one night, woke Mom and Daddy up, turned the light on, he's full of blood. And he said, I hit a little culvert.
One thing I didn't mention about JD that I said that he was very helpful and gave us some good guidance. Well, living in the country and working in town, I needed transportation. And I wouldn't dare discuss with my father the need for him to sign for an automobile for me. So JD willingly let me put I bought my own automobile when I was 16 years old. And JD put the automobile in his name and covered it. We covered it with insurance through him. So I bought a 39 Dodge, a 48 Plymouth, and a 51 Plymouth through JD to provide me with transportation in my early years, and that had a big influence on my life.
That was a 39 Plymouth, huh? Or 29?
It was a 39 Dodge.
Dodge. Well, one night, Louis and I and two other guys left the Moonlight Inn on our way to the hideout in Port Barry. And I was driving, and we were going over the old pass. I was doing pretty good. He said, no, and I forgot to tell you, this thing don't drop out a second.
I don't know what that means. They're not from that.
Well, manual shift. There she knows.
Yeah. Okay.
But one other thing, JD had an influence on me for going to school, continuing my education. In fact, he was still at SLI when I enrolled the second time. And if it hadn't been for him being at school, I probably wouldn't go to school. I'd probably still be digging ditches somewhere.
You're too old for that.
Huh?
You're too old for that.
Well, I climb poles, I guess I can dig ditches too.
So JD, I want to ask you a question. Do you remember how long Grandpa worked for the Sheriff's Department?
What's the question?
Grandpa, how long did he work for the Sheriff's Department?
He didn't work for the sheriff.
He didn't?
I don't
What did he
He
do?
was a military policeman
Oh,
In Lake Charles.
in Lake Charles.
okay,
Yeah, he didn't work for
okay.
I didn't think so.
He did guard duty.
What did he do?
Just guarding the bridge.
He's a guard. They were building that bridge in
Okay,
Lake
okay,
Charles.
okay.
And he wore a pistol. He wore a pistol that hung down here. I remember that.
Wow.
He looked like the real thing, man.
So JD, anything particular you remember about growing up?
Other than the fact that I worked very hard. Not much really. I was in the service when I was 17, 18 years old, I think. Came back. Went to school on GI Bill.
I can remember JD when, we were young. And he wasn't scared of nothing. He wasn't scared of anything. I can remember when I entered the 8th grade, I was being, what do they call it?
Bullet.
Bullet? No, we're going through the, when you grow up, get into high school, they, initiation.
Yeah,
And one guy had made me take off my shoes and put my socks over my ears. And I bumped into him, he said, take them goddamn socks off your ears, boy. I said, but he made me do it. He said, well, screw him. Take them socks off your ears. And I took them socks off my ears. That's what I remember about him. He wasn't scared of nothing.
We're gonna break for lunch now.
Even though JD was a very wealthy person when I was trying to go to school, one complaint I had was that he didn't pay for my education. And but he paid for it in terms of encouragement. I mean, using encouragement. That's it.
Good job.
JD did give us a lot of encouragement. Met on the street one day, and he said, one of them said, man, I ain't seen you in a long time. Where you been up? He said, well, I'm taking a course in logic. He said, logic? What the hell that mean? He said, well, let me explain it to you.
Sit in here, James.
He said, you got a weed eater? I said, yeah. He said, well, that means you got a yard to trim? I said, yeah. And if you got a yard to trim, you got a house. Yeah, that's logic. If you got a house, that means you married, you got a family. Yeah. And he went on and on. He said, all right, good. So the next day, the question I asked met another guy. He said, hey, you met Zombie lately? He said, yeah, that man's taking a course in logic. He said, logic? What do you mean by logic? He said, well, he said, like this. He said, let me explain it to you. You got a weed eater? He said, no. He said, you ain't got no logic at all, boy. Hey, there was more to it, but that's why I called Butch. We couldn't remember the punchline. So we framed one.
Oh, I think I remember it.
Huh?
Since he didn't have a weed eater, it means he didn't have a yard, didn't have a house, and didn't have a family. So he was a homosexual. That's what it was.
That's it.
That's what it was.
And I got a Dear John from him when I was fighting for my country. And the rest is history. Birdie and I got married. She ran off. Met her. By the way, I'm going to mention this. Virginia? No, Jenny's first husband died of a heart attack when he was 43 years old. And nice guy. Guy Thompson. And people ask me, how'd y'all meet? And I said, well, my first wife ran off and her husband died at 43 and we happened to meet up. The rest is history. Anyway.
Can you say anything about these two guys?
Yeah. My brothers. They've done well for themselves. Pain in the butt when they come to visit me.
There's only one time we came here where you didn't have beer in the refrigerator. But you went by some. Remember that?
Yeah. What else could I say? Beyond what they've said, especially this one.
I didn't catch that and I don't want to. Anyway,
Can you think of anything?
I just want to say one more thing.
Okay.
My name is Nolan Joseph Briley. I have 3 kids, Donald, David, and Dina. I have 10 grandkids, and I have 7 great-grandkids. And that's it.
That's good. That's good.
And I haven't decided which one I'm going to leave all my money to.
So, Uncle Nolan, you know any jokes?
I'll just leave $1 to each one.
Do you know any jokes? Any jokes?
Joke. Can I joke?
Do you know any jokes to tell?
Do I know any joke?
Yeah.
Well, if Jenny reminded me of one.
Big joke.
No, I don't mean she reminded me of a joke.
What about the old sow? The old sow.
Oh, the
Oh,
old
my
sow?
God.
Well, there's this guy had an old sow, and the old sow got in heat. And the only way he had to have a bread was to take a 5 miles down the highway to Archangel's Bull Hog, and the only way he had to get it there was in a wheelbarrow. So he said, well, I got to do it. So he put in that wheelbarrow, rolled all the way to Archangel's house, put in a pen with the old boar. They did their thing, put it back in the wheelbarrow. He said, well, Archangel, how am I going to know if this is going to work? He said, well, look out the window tomorrow. If she's eating grass, that means it worked. If she's eating corn, that means it, no, if she's eating corn, that means it worked. If she's eating grass, that means, or vice versa, that means it didn't work. So the next morning he got up, he said, Titties, to his wife, see what out there with that old sow's eating? Said, she's eating grass. He said, oh, shit. So he put it back in the wheelbarrow, rolled all the way to our corn, brought it back. Next morning he said, Titties, see what she's eating this morning? She's eating grass. Oh, Lord. Put it back in the wheelbarrow, and this went on for 3 or 4 days. And he said, Titties, what's that old sow eating this morning? She said, she's not eating nothing. She's sitting in the wheelbarrow. Now I know Butch wants me to tell you the story about how can you tell when a what goes blind?
I don't know.
You cut one.
Oh, the frog joke.
Huh?
It's
Yeah,
frog
yeah.
joke.
The frog joke.
You gotta
Yeah.
start
I ain't
again.
about to get in that.
Oh,
I get mixed up on the legs, man.
you
No, no,
hadn't
no,
had much to drink yet.
No, no, that's a
Huh?
classic.
You gotta tell that one.
Yeah.
What?
Frog joke.
Hey, the one leg, the two.
Yeah.
It's best
Anyway.
when it's best when you have to think your way through. That's the best joke.
Yeah. Oh, they went to class, and I've come to the conclusion. Each one would get up, and they'd tell a story, and the professor would say, "And what do you conclude?" And they'd tell the conclusion. Well, this little Cajun boy got up and told the time he experimented with a frog. I said, well, explain it. So he said, well, I had this frog one time. He said, I cut the left front leg off, and I said, hop, frog, hop. And the frog hopped. And I cut the right back leg off, and I said, hop, frog, hop. And the frog hopped, hop. And he said, then I cut the right front leg off, and I said, hop, frog. And the frog hopped. Then I cut the left back leg off, and I said, hop, frog, hop. And the frog didn't do nothing. Hop, frog, hop. Frog didn't do nothing. And he said, yeah. He said, well, what was the conclusion? He said, well, I have come to the conclusion when you cut all 4 legs off a frog, it turns deaf. Oh, boy. Yeah, well.
How about Leroy?
Huh?
Cousin Leroy.
Leroy, which one is that?
Cousin Leroy went to Vietnam.
Oh, Lord.
And he drank the gin.
I don't remember.
All right.
Hey, Butch, I don't remember all the ammunition he had.
A knife,
Yeah.
a gun with 2 bullets.
And then that one, I
Yeah,
got to
50
say a
gin.
bad word, and I'm not about to say a bad.
Did you tell the pig joke?
Yeah, you did.
No, you told the pig joke?
What? Yeah.
The pig, yeah, I missed your pig joke.
Oh, you know, Joe?
I'm too serious.
All right.
Anybody have anything they want to ask while we still got a beer for a
I'd
couple
like to
minutes?
ask something.
Okay.
Did any of you guys ever get into any fights?
Fight?
Fights. The brothers. Did y'all ever fight with each other?
Holy man.
Well, we also,
Not vicious fights, but,
No, y'all use weapons, so.
Yeah.
Hey,
we
no,
also
you-
had a pair of boxing gloves that we would use to,
quell our anger.
yeah.
But y'all use broken glass, hey, you use broken glass?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
corn cup and
Yeah,
fork, right?
I had a
Forks.
brother that broke an old bottle and threw it at me and cut my leg pretty
Yeah.
bad.
How did you handle the cuts?
And treated it with kerosene. Treated the cut with kerosene.
And didn't Nolan tell you to shake it off, or what? Quit crying, baby, or something?
I cried like a little baby just because JD stuck a glass in his leg. I got a true story to tell though about this boy, this man's son, his oldest son, known as Butch. Grandpa had an old dog named Gus, a Catahoula cattle dog, by that time. And Butch came down the steps at the old house, not the greenhouse, the other, and Gus was in his way. And Butch did like that and said, "God damn, Gus, get out of the way." Pow! Butch could kick about halfway up Gus's tail. And he said, "Damn, Gus, you old bastard, get out of the way." And I know where he learned that word, from his grandpa. Yeah. Believe it or not, just like Ray used to say, Daddy used to cuss for 30 minutes and not repeat himself once.
Oh, wow.
And I learned them all.
Speaking of your parents, what's your favorite memory of your mother, and what's your favorite memory of your father?
Go ahead.
Well, my favorite memory of my father is just generally he was a strong person. He was a very strong person and responsible person. He didn't make a very big living, but we all survived and lived through it. For the meager salaries he made, we lived pretty darn good. He always had transportation, and he kept us on the straight and narrow. That's it.
How did he do that? How did he keep you on the straight and narrow?
Well, it's called a foot.
Oh, wow.
No, it was just, we knew when he said something that it was, that was it. And that we should be sure that we understood what he meant and do what he said.
How about Grandma? What's your favorite memory of her?
Just one wonderful, caring person.
Strong person.
Strong.
She was.
And one hell of a cook.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you, do you miss her pecan pralines?
Yeah, she could make a good okra gumbo.
Oh, yes.
When I would call Mom and say, "Mom, I'm coming home for the weekend," she said, "Well, I'll put the okra gumbo on." Well, I second everything Louis has said about Dad and Mom. Both of them were strong. Both of them were very strong-willed. They, in their own ways, they showed us love. They let us grow up with the true meaning of life. Yeah. Very true. And I remember working with Dad out in the pasture. I mean, we would help him do anything. Spray cattle, round up the cattle, give
Castrate the
medicine to
bulls.
cattle. Huh?
Castrate the bulls.
Castrate the bull. And I knew right then and there that he had some medical knowledge. One day I was helping him neuter a little bull, and as he went to slice it, the bull hit the knife, and I had a big gash around here. Well, he immediately grabbed the tractor fuel, poured it on, wrapped his handkerchief around me, said, talk to the bulls yet. Next! That's true. He had medical knowledge. And I think that's where Will got it from. He wouldn't let time elapse, especially when you were neutering bulls. He taught me a lot. You know.
How about Grandma? How about Grandma? What's your favorite memory of her?
I remember my mother as being a very gentle, kind person. When things would go wrong, you know, she'd complain a little, but not very much. And she knew where we were. She knew where things were, and she would just buckle down and get it done. Whether she had a hard life. Mom had a hard life. After 9 kids, she had a hard life. And a lot of times I felt very sorry. Most of the time I felt sorry. Most of the time I felt very sorry. But I didn't realize it at the time that she had great responsibility, very great responsibility. And I was telling him this morning, my mom used to, well, not ask me, but she said, clean that wall. You know, we'd help her in the house, clean the wall. And every now and then she'd slip me a quarter, and I didn't even know she had a quarter in her pocket. I was probably 10, 12 years old. And, you know, she'd get me to peel the potatoes for her, and she never did trust me to make the gumbo. Never did. And
wash day,
oh Lord.
wash day looked like this. She, well, first of all, she did washing outside, and she had a big black pot that she would put on fire and put necessary soaps and stuff in it, and she would boil the clothes. She'd have to boil Daddy's clothes because his clothes is always full of grease and oil and stuff like that. So I can remember her struggling. I think it was on Mondays. Boy, she would struggle through a big old washing and then have to hang all the clothes out on the clothesline. That's one thing I remember. Besides being a tremendous cook.
She washed on Monday and ironed on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And but like Louis mentioned, the pot with the soap on a big fire, you used to have to boil that clothes. And then she'd run the white clothes through bluing. You remember bluing? To make it whiter? She always ran it through a container with bluing in it, making sure that we looked sharp to go to school.
JD, what are your favorite memories? What are your favorite memories of Grandma and Grandpa?
Well, she brought too many siblings into the family.
Did she do that by herself?
She was great, that's all I remember. My dad was tough. Like Nolan said, he said, boy, that's all that was necessary. And that's it.
Discipline.
One more thing. He has to be proud. Joseph Douglas Briley Jr. Good thing he was born before me, or I'd have got that. You notice I never did name any of my two boys Junior. Because every day they thank me. Thank you, Dad, for not naming me Nolan. Donnie told me, used to say, what's your dad's name? He said, well, my dad's name was Charles. He didn't want to tell him my name was Nolan. And then, a lot of people misspell my name. Instead of N-O-L-I-N, I get it N-O-L-A-N. We got a new badge at the hospital the other day. Guess how they spell my name? A-N. The reason why I spell it I-N, because on my not birth certificate, baptismal certificate, looks like they went to make an A or an I, but it looked like an I. So that's why I spell it I-N instead of A-N. A lot of people say, why you spell it I-N instead of A-N? I said, talk to the priest, he wrote it. Louis, one more thing about Louis. Unfortunately, he has bad eyesight. He was playing a pickup football game at school, and some guy put his knee in his eye.
Oh, I know.
All right, who was that?
Floyd Steller.
Floyd Steller. Floyd ended up to be a championship boxer. And I told him, I said, why didn't you use your knees? Floyd Steller. Any questions?
Yeah, I was going to say, any questions from anyone?
Thank y'all so much.
Anybody wants to know how I became the lucky seven? They got 9, I was 7th, lucky 7th? I don't know.
Birth order.
Yeah.
Well, I know we didn't do this perfect by a long shot, but it was enjoyable, and hopefully y'all got something out of the comments.
I think it's something that the kids will enjoy in years to come.
Absolutely.
I'm sure I'll be embarrassed when I view the film.
It's all good. This is good stuff. We got some good stuff.
We enjoyed it.
Well, Glenn, you're going to edit the bad spots out of it.
I'm going to edit you out of everything. It's just going to be JD and Lewis. There's going to be like one of those fuzzy spots right where you are.
I demand a recount. I want to do it by myself next time.
Okay.
So I can get some words in.
I'm going to give you the word count for everybody on there. You're going to be off the chart.
Yep.
Thank you, Janet, for moderating.
You did it all.
Appreciate it.
All of you three did it all.
And you're as lovely as ever.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
Yep, you got it.
Not feeling this GP.
And thank all of y'all.